All right, guys, we're here for another Whale Club Hangout session. This is our 11th episode. Today we have, for the first time, we have BitFinex on. But what's interesting is we have a very familiar face with Zane Tackett. And before we allow him to reintroduce himself in his new role, you can find all of us over on the Whale Club TeamSpeak, ts.whaleclub.io. Where we have our just trader pit talk 24/7 about everything going on in the Bitcoin markets. So, Zane, some people don't even know that you've left OKCoin, but take us through how you ended up over at BitFinex and your early experiences with them so far.
All right. So back in about March, I decided I was gonna leave OKCoin, and I resigned on I think March 4th, and then I made it public the following Monday, I believe. And after that, I was kind of looking at what other options were out there for me, and got in touch with Bitfinex, and it really seemed like a good fit because what I was brought on to do at OKCoin was make the best exchange in the world, and I felt like we were making some good headway, but there was still a long way to go, as there always is. There's a lot to do, and progress really kind of came to a halt, and so they decided not to focus on the exchange side anymore. And when I was talking to Bitfinex, the one thing that they really drove home, and the one thing that really resonated with me, is we're focused on making the best exchange out there, and that's what we're going to do. And that kind of made my decision for me, is that they were doing what I wanted to do, and the team seemed like a very good fit. And they'd already come a really long way and built a great product, and so it was an honor to be able to join them. And I'm really looking forward to what we'll be able to do in the future. We're a very focused team, very driven, and so yeah, that's kind of how I joined Bitfinex.
So,
Um,
so speaking of that team, I think many of us have kind of they've come more public within the last probably 3 to 4 months, but we always knew of Bitfinex. Many of us have used it for quite some time, but we didn't really know kind of the people behind it and the team. Can you go over like the executive staff, how many people are at Bitfinex, some of the notables that make up that team?
all right, yeah. Well, I think you guys all know Raphael, right? Raphael was the founder. He's who started Bitfinex, and he's been with them since the beginning. And he takes on the dev role. He handles a lot of the site changes and a lot of the programming, so that's what Raphael does. And then we have Phil Potter, who a lot of you guys know from TeamSpeak, and Phil really does has his hands in everything. He does deals a lot with the product, and a lot with the traders, and kind of the larger clients, and does some biz dev. And so he kind of has his hands in everything. And then there's Jean-Louis, who's the CEO, and he's based in Hong Kong. And then there's Josh Rossi, who a lot of you guys probably know as well, since he used to do a lot of the community outreach, and now he's taken on more of a dev role, and I'll be taking over more of the community outreach. He'll still be around and everything, but that'll be my focus, where he'll be more focused on getting the dev side done and getting the programming in. And then we have Giancarlo, and he's based in Europe. And those are the main ones. Those are probably the people that you guys would be have the most interaction with, or probably already know. And then most recently we have me from OKCoin, and I'll be doing the community outreach. And pretty much be doing the same thing that I was doing with OKCoin, interacting with the community, trying to figure out where the pain points are, improve on the product, and kind of build the product that you guys want to use. Um, and then our most recent addition is Nika. who was also at OKCoin. And she'll be helping out with customer service and things on the Russian side, doing community outreach there as well. And she was the head of OKCoin's international customer service. So some of you might have talked to her in the past before as well.
I'm suddenly seeing a trend, but yeah. Well, a lot of people still. I think there was some downtime with BitFinex last night. Is there anything you want to address? Because I know that was something very relevant that some of us have been talking about in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, there was. It took about 2 hours to solve the problem. We just had some server issues, but we got it fixed pretty quick, and now everything should be running smooth again. But we just had a small server issue that we needed to get fixed, and so we got that fixed. And it wasn't site-wide; it was limited to certain users, and it wasn't on every function. But everything's fixed now, and nobody should be encountering any issues from that.
And then I'm going to circle back in a moment, but since we're on those lines of usability and functionality at the exchange level, we've heard from Phil for quite some time that the integration with Alphapoint is an ongoing endeavor for you guys. Can you kind of take us through what is going on there? Why is it taking so long? When will we see some of the increased functionality? Because I know there's a lot of API-related issues as far as the lag and stuff. Will that all be corrected with when the integration is fully complete?
Well, actually, there shouldn't be issues with the API right now. We actually we made some changes about 2 weeks ago that should have fixed most of the issues that people were experiencing with that. And so if anybody's experiencing any issues, please let me know and send me an email with what's going on, because that shouldn't be happening. And we believe that we've sorted out most of the issues. But onto the larger question, which is Alphapoint, as to why it's taking so long. I don't think it's really fair to say it's taking so long. It really is a major change, and it's not something that you can take lightly. It's the matching engine's the heart of an exchange, and so if you jump the gun, then you're going to lose a lot more customers, because people are going to be losing money, and there's going to be a lot bigger issues than if you take a couple more weeks or a couple more months to make sure that every single thing is down pat and have everything fixed and ready to go. But because the matching engine is the heart, there's a lot more to it than just getting that done. We're really doing a whole site-wide change here. It's not just one area. It's not just a simple change. You can't just swap this in and go with it. It's a whole revamp. We have to make sure that the front end and the middleware are up to par to go along with the Alphapoint API. And so it's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger change than I think a lot of people are realizing. And I think it'll the effects isn't just on the trading engine, right? That's the direct, but you also have a lot bigger changes in that, which deal with it allows for more order types, and it allows for more APIs and the less API issues. And so it really is a site-wide change. It isn't just one small thing. And so we really need to make sure that in every aspect that it's going to go through smoothly. And so it requires a lot of testing. It requires a lot of forethought. But that being said, we are getting closer, and we seem to be quite happy with the progress that we've made so far.
Assets, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you can provide some sort of timeline, even if it's general. It's been it's been hard because I like to fight for BitFinex, but when we debate various issues that need to be updated and corrected, it always just boils down to, well, it'll be solved in Alphapoint, right? And so we can't even discuss it because we just have that hanging over our heads.
First off, I don't think that is really the attitude that we've taken. It isn't really, it'll be solved with this, so just wait and kind of deal with the problems that you've had. Like I said, a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago, we made some updates to the trading engine, and that should have fixed a lot of the issues that people were experiencing. So we are still taking a proactive approach to making sure that the issues are getting solved in real time, as well as updating what's going to happen in the future.
I'm more referring to, being able to have more advanced order types and things like that.
Do you mean that the more advanced order types are what you're waiting for, that you're waiting for Alphapoint, or you think that they're mutually exclusive?
I don't know whether they're exclusive or not. It's actually probably not of much concern to your traders. Just when we can start to have. It feels like there aren't going to be any advancements until Alphapoint is ready. So whether they come with them or after them, I don't know if there's a difference. But when are we going to be able to see the effects of all this development?
Well, I'd like to.
If
I might jump in there. Since last year, several, like maybe middle of last year when Alphapoint, they first started talking about Alphapoint, all we've ever got from BitFinex, is we're working on it. It's really hard. We're solving problems. It's critical, obviously, all the stuff you said. But we never actually hear any specifics, And what I would really like, it's starting to sound like, Litecoins are going on to Mount Gox. What I'd really like to know is, what would be useful is, well, there are these milestones that we have to cover, and so far we've solved these problems, but this is the area that we're still stuck on. Because otherwise, it's just, it feels like we're being brushed aside,
Sort of like the Bitcoin Talk software, right? It's like everybody threw a bunch of money at Bitcoin Talk, and he said he was going to make great software, and after like 5 years, all they did was add a reputation system.
I think.
First of all, the Bitcoin Talk, that might be a little extreme. When was that money donated? Like 2 years ago, and when
I wasn't trying to be literal. I'm just making an example of how Bitcoiners can be particularly sensitive to this kind of thing.
Well,
I think specifically
I believe. Sorry, go ahead.
I think, forgetting Bitcoin Talk, what you need to, what we kind of need to hear is that, okay, Alphapoint, to get Alphapoint running, we have a set of milestones which we need to complete. We have got through the first set of milestones and tell us what they are, and we're stuck on or solving the next set, because otherwise it's just, it'll be done in 2 weeks, it'll be done in 2 weeks, it'll be done sometime in the future, and we don't know what, you understand, the same thing that you've said, has been said since the middle of last year about Alphapoint, which is basically nothing. It's coming, and it's really hard, but it's coming.
Yeah, I understand that, but please do keep in mind that is true. And by the way, the integration of Alphapoint was only announced in November, so hasn't been quite that long. However, I do understand what you're saying, but it's hard to give an exact date on when we'll have it done. That being said, we are getting to the final stages of the integration. And right now we're mostly working on the logic. The tech side of things have been mostly worked out. We're just ironing out a few more details that we need to figure out on the logic side for how the matching engine should operate before we can go live with it. But we hope to have something coming up quite soon. And I know you guys have been hearing that. But it's hard to set an exact date on when it happens, because.
But we don't need an exact date, Zane. What we need is to to get some feel that it's moving forward. There doesn't have to be, it's going to be on this date. We're currently solving this issue. We've done some. We thought we were getting close, but now we realize that whatever. And just give us some kind of then we can get a feel for the process, rather than it's coming, vague, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I think he just wants evidence that there actually has been development.
I don't really know what I can give you in terms of evidence. I mean, we didn't just announce it to sit on our hands and say, well, hopefully we'll have it done. It is something that we are actively working on, and it is something that is our number one goal right now is getting that done, or it's a high priority rather. And like I said, the tech side of things are mostly completed, so a lot of the hard work is out of the way. It's just trying to get the logic parts figured out and make sure that really when we launch there aren't any issues.
Like, have you been running things side by side for the time being, like having Alphapoint running in the shadow, as it were?
We have been having Alphapoint run, and well, basically that's testing it, right? And we have been having it run basically in the shadows, so not actually having it match the orders, but testing it to see how it would be doing. And we've been impressed with what we've seen so far.
So that would that mean like running it in parallel with the current matching engine, and then seeing if it's making the same matches that you expect and that you're getting?
Exactly, but right, it's doing that all virtually. It's not actually matching those orders. So it isn't, if you place an order, your order isn't being matched by one or the other. It's being matched by the matching engine that we've been using. But we are running Alphapoint in the background and trying to test it and see how it would be operating and everything like that.
Okay.
And so far, we've been very pleased with how that's going. Yeah.
Now, I get the impression that the Alphapoint integration and upgrade has little to do with feature upgrades. Is that correct?
That would be incorrect.
So it will bring the new order types and such?
It wouldn't bring the new order types alone. Like it wouldn't just be now we have Alphapoint, and because we have Alphapoint, we have all of this. But after launching Alphapoint, there will be a lot of new things that we'll be able to get to work on and get done, and order types are one of those. We're looking at stop limit and TWAPs and some of the algos and more than that. But just to give you some idea of a timeline on when we hope to get it done, there's a very high chance, 90% or above, that we'll have it done by the conference in New York, the Inside Bitcoins conference.
So this month, hopefully.
That we're targeting that, yes.
Cool.
But because, like I was explaining earlier with Alphapoint, or with the trading engine, matching engine being a very large part of an exchange, it does allow other order types, and it allows a lot more. It allows a lot of other features, such as like the price crossing. So what we want to do is we basically want to develop a daily price crossing mechanism, and basically have a daily settlement price, and from that we can work on the next products that we hope to come out with. Which would derivatives, yes, that's something that we'd like to look into getting done, and that settlement price would be the basis of the derivatives market, and we're actively looking into that as well.
Yeah, and I don't want us to sound like some nagging chickens that are clucking over stuff that we want as we're demanding a bunch of people, but I mean there's real money on the line, so it impacts us very directly. I know Nomad's been having a lot of API related issues, and during high traffic times when that lag occurs, going about trying to introduce orders or cancel orders becomes a problem. So that's something it's very personal to all of us as a trader, so I understand where the emotion is coming from.
Well, whenever there's money on the line, people can get demanding, and so I'm not really gonna. I can kind of expect that, and I can't really expect anything else. But any time you guys feel like something's not getting done, don't hesitate to let us know. Sitting there quiet isn't gonna help the situation.
So
But you were saying that Nomad was having issues with the API, and is that currency? Or is that currently? Sorry.
is he currently having
Yeah.
issue? He says during peak traffic hours or when there's some traffic.
All right. I don't believe I have his contact details. Vix, if you could send that to me on WeChat or whatever, I'd like to reach out to him and see what's going on.
I know he's listening. I'll get you that in a bit, um, or after the hangout. So, this kind of
Uh,
leads me into the next part is, BitFinex, has done a lot of things right. They certainly, you know, for better or worse, Stamp had some issues and they've captured a large market share. But what concerns me is to see kind of the progress that has happened over the last 9 months or so, and to know that there's very, very, very talented people from, say, the HFT space that are starting to look at Bitcoin, starting to look at launching Bitcoin exchanges. And my concern is whether BitFinex really has the talent to compete with that higher echelon of competition. So, I mean, I don't know what you can go into, but that's one big concern for me because it's always about what results end up being. And some of it even weighs on me personally as far as seeing the integration process of Alphapoint. I have a lot of expectations, maybe unrealistic, but I wanted it done already. And I think some people in this room have kind of voiced, like, why isn't it done already? And I know you've communicated it well why it's not, but tell me why or how, like, development wise you guys can compete in this, ever more competitive environment.
Well, I find it interesting that people, kind of ask this question when it comes to BitFinex, and people talk about order types and things like that. But if you look, none of the other big exchanges are using OCOs. None of them have that. And we have a lot of the filler kill. We have a lot of we have a lot of we have a lot of products and features that other people don't have, and we have the most robust lending system out there. Um, and I think it's important to remember that a lot of the products that we're launching, we don't have socialized losses. We don't have things like that. We're launching full, complete products. We're not launching, I guess I'd call them half-ass. But as to the skill of the devs, uh, Bitfinex has been a pretty small team, and yet they're still able to get to where they are today. They're still able to have as featureful of an exchange as they have today. And they're completely focused on building the best exchange. They're not worried about a retail side and going out and sending people to convince merchants to accept Bitcoin, and they're not worried about building wallets and all that. And so even though you see these larger teams of devs, at other Bitcoin companies, their focus is divided. There's OK Voice, OK Link, OK Coin. They have all these different products, and that divides the focus where Bitfinex is focused.
In all
And not
fairness,
only that, sorry, go ahead.
well, in all fairness, though, I mean, like Bitfinex's feature set hasn't actually changed in, I mean, very, very long time. OCOs were added, considerably long time ago. There
Hmm.
has been no innovation, and like OKCoin has, I mean, OKCoin has literally wiped the floor with, in terms of feature set. There's just no comparison. The only thing that the OKCoin has failed on is not having an auto borrowing system. So
I've been on the inside of both of them. Believe me, there are other differences here, big differences. But as to go back to Vix's question, are we able to compete? We are outsourcing some of the things like Alphapoint, the matching engine, and that'll give us the best matching engine in the industry. And not only that, but we are also looking at hiring more talent. I'm an example of that. They brought me on, and we've recently hired some other people, and most recently just hired Nika. But we are looking for more talent. We are trying to hire more people. We're a growing team, um, and and things like that. We just have to grow, and keep it going forward.
Did you say how many are currently on the team total?
Well, I don't believe everybody's full time, but I believe it's around 17.
Okay.
I'm not too sure though.
Yeah, and I mean, me and you, Zane, spoke a lot about the focus from a trader perspective that we really wanted, trading platform orientated. So I don't doubt that vision at all from BitFinex, especially speaking with not only you but Phil quite extensively about that. But what I will say is, just even though you can see the competition, sometimes the biggest threats come from something you can't see. So just be aware of that. So with that, go ahead.
But with that same advice, I would say remember that when you're looking at the exchanges that are already out there, there's competition that you can't see, but the exchanges that are already out there also have products in the pipeline that you haven't seen yet either. And so it works both ways. But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to turn it over to assets now. If you want to move into the more specifics with number 5.
Sure. This is going to be some of the stuff that I talked about with you last week, but just for the benefit of everybody. One thing that I've heard people kind of pine about is how the liquidity at BitFinex is very chunky, and it's very far from the spread at spot price. And depending on who you talk to, some people will say they think things like iceberg orders would help towards that. Maybe somehow getting more market makers involved to have the kind of bot action that you see on OKCoin in some of their markets. And whether or not that bot action is not happening either because of not finding the market makers manually, or because these market makers or bots are unhappy with the API or feature set for the API. I don't know, but generally this is something I brought up to you, and I just was wondering if you could share what BitFinex's take on this and what they do on those kind of facets to improve it, and whether they even think there's a problem, or this is just the way it is.
All right. Well, I think that when you say if there is a problem, liquidity can always be improved on. So it is something that we can always get better at. And as to how that's going to happen, with the integration of Alphapoint and the update of the APIs, and that'll really allow for more bots to trade, and you'll be able to see more trades around the spot price that you were talking about. But I think one thing to think about with BitFinex is when you look at the other exchanges like OKCoin, they're not showing their full order book, and so you can't really see the entire liquidity that they offer, where everything that we show is there, it's real. And so you can kind of judge the liquidity a little bit better from that.
I think you're in a tight spot because.
I do understand.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that with OKCoin.cn being zero fee, you are gonna see tighter spreads, but you really don't know how deep that liquidity goes because they're not showing you the full order book. You're not really gonna be able to tell.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily looking to criticize and say that OKCoin's liquidity is better, because I actually disagree with people that say that. If you're talking about any meaningful volume, I don't think the liquidity is better in OKCoin, unless you start talking about futures. But futures is kind of like a synthetic market, right? It's not totally tied to the Bitcoin liquidity. So, but I think that is what you're up against. Whether it's fair or not, that is what frustrates people when they try to trade on BitFinex. Is that they can't really trade.
I understand.
They have to take a large position, and it's got to be like 2%. They got to wait for like a 2% gain to have the liquidity to even close it.
I do understand. That even though it's a different product, it still is a competitor, and it is what we have to compete with. But I think that when we see once we come out with the updated API and the new API and the new matching, and that we will have more bots, and unlike other exchanges, every time that a trade goes through, it will be meaningful change of ownership. There won't be a wash trade or anything like that. But I think that after the Alphapoint integration, we'll see more trades happening around the spot price and start to tighten down the spreads.
Yeah, and just on that same note, I think some people don't understand that the order book, there's this thing in the industry called remarketing, where you're sourcing liquidity off of other exchanges. Now it's probably a lot of liquidity off of BFX, but it's something similar to when BitFinex was using like stamp order book as far as that goes.
I think you'll see that phenomenon with just arbitrage schemes as well.
Yes.
Does BitFinex actively solicit market makers and people running these bots?
Well, we're always looking to bring more traders and more liquidity to the exchange. So in that regard, absolutely, yeah.
So with that being, I mean, we had some pretty big recent news as far as the HFT hedge funds. I think it's very interesting. DRW trading out of Chicago has an ARM digital assets holding, which has a subsidiary called Cumberland Mining, which we do know has sent coins over to BitFinex. And clearly I don't want to get into any of those relations. But if we speak from a general point of view, what do you see as these new players coming in and what the trading landscape will evolve to? How do you think these things will change, and what added value or functionality are they bringing to the overall Bitcoin trading sphere?
Right now, Bitcoin it's still a very immature. A lot of the products are very immature because of lack of liquidity. And when you get these HFT firms coming in, I'd say the major difference that you're going to see is you're going to see a pickup of liquidity. You're going to see a pickup of trading activity. And with that comes a whole slew of other options. And it'll allow for better derivatives, and it'll allow for more bot trading, and just in general it'll pick up the liquidity, and that'll have very big consequences in what it allows for people to do. And I think in general it'll be a overall benefit for everybody, not just the bigger traders.
Gotcha. And assets, do you want to go over the BFX data? I know you had some questions regarding that.
Yeah, sure. I'll make one little segue question first, so we don't have to skip over it. But I mentioned to you last week as well, Zane. Right now, in order to trade Bitfinex manually, you can't actually use the Bitfinex order book on the Bitfinex website because it's not fresh enough. It doesn't refresh automatically.
Right.
And so basically you have your traders finding themselves having to rely on information from a third party, or at least filtered through a third party, in order to place orders, actively. Is there something that Bitfinex is doing about that?
Yeah. I've already talked with Phil and the dev team about this, and this is something that we're actively looking into fixing. Yeah.
And that would be the segue into BFX data, where I know that there is some relationship with BFX data. I think one of the people that works at Bitfinex runs it, but he runs it independently. Is there any reason or plan why it isn't, or plan to integrate that officially into Bitfinex?
Currently, there's not. It's its own separate service, and it is run independently from Bitfinex. Into the reasoning of this, I'm not terribly. I haven't really explored that too much, but yeah. To answer your question, there are two separate services as of right now, and there are no plans to integrate them into one.
And how would that affect my next question, which is another thing we discussed, which is I have some, and I'm not the only one, problems with the misleading nature of the sentiment percentage indicator, and how it, I believe, if I'm correct, that it only calculates openings and it doesn't factor in closings of positions. So it always looks more like there's more sentiment than you actually can gauge, and so you have to always go back and refer to the sum and see whether there's been a change in the sum. Is that something that BitFinex is able to influence and either help provide more data to BFX data, or have them at least more clearly explain what people are looking at, and maybe even just remove the misleading aspect of the indicators?
Well, I don't think BitFinex really would need to influence that, right? I mean, even if it's an independent service, it's still out there to be a good service, and so any way that they can improve on that is still an improvement, whether or not BitFinex wants them to do it or he wants to do it himself, right? He wants to build a good service that traders can use and that benefits everybody. So if that requires more data from us or anything like that, we have no problem giving it to him.
I'm going to guess that you don't currently stream closing data, and that's why it's not included.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm going to guess that you probably don't actually stream the closing information data, and that's why he displays it that way.
That is correct. Is that for a reason? This is something that we're working towards right now. But I mean, anytime you guys have features that you'd like to see on BitFinex or on BFX Data, or anything you'd like to see, I mean, reach out to them, get in touch with them, and you can get in touch with them through me, and I'll pass it on as I have with what we've already talked about. But I mean, even
so it is better to just contact them directly. I shouldn't necessarily be bugging you guys about stuff about BFX data.
No. Don't worry at all if you want to reach out to me, because I can talk to them just as easy as you. It's no problem, and it doesn't bother me at all. And through that, I also get a good idea of what traders are looking for. So I have no problem with that. You don't need to worry about who you're contacting. But
mostly I just hate to see lesser informed traders looking at it and say, "Whoa, BitFinex is 90% long in the past 12 hours," and then really all it is just some whale washing through his swaps to get cheaper ones.
Yeah, but I mean that's really if BitFinex is providing API data and then someone is rendering that into nice charts and stuff, then it's really none of BitFinex's business.
I only mentioned it in that context because if I understand correctly, the guy does work at BitFinex.
That is correct. Separate services. And also the other, actually, the guy behind BFX just got in touch with me and said the bitcointalk.org thread is the perfect place to reach out. So if you guys have any issues, that's probably the best place to get in touch. But alternatively, don't hesitate to reach out and talk to me. I'll pass anything on.
I'm just kind of stepping in here, but I'm getting a really good question that focuses on just our prior topic as far as order book and lag and remarketing. Are you able to tell us the other exchanges that you're hooked up into for remarketing, as well as what influence does that have as far as lag goes? Because I have to believe that if you're sourcing from other order books, there's a bottlenecking there of going out to get those orders. Can you go over that at all? Because I think that's very important.
You mean us sourcing from other exchanges, not the other way around?
Yeah. Well, if it's going... It seems to many people that there are lag issues, and if there are, wouldn't that go to say that they're sourcing out to other exchanges to go get those orders?
BitFinex has stopped sourcing a long time ago.
Sorry, can you say that again?
BitFinex's order book is entirely its own now. They're not merging.
Yeah. We're not sourcing from other order books. I think people are generally sourcing from us. But just to kind of explain, there is one, I think, misconception that's going on with the lag. A lot of times when you see the lag that you're seeing isn't the lag with our matching engine. What it is it's the lag with pushing the data. And so the trades are happening in real time, and those trades are matching, and there isn't a lag on that. the issue is the reporting of the trades. And so you might not be getting the data in real time, but it is going through in real time. But this is something that we are also looking at improving on.
All right. I think that's where we'll leave that question. Assets, do you want to move on?
Yeah, I want to segue. I'm going to skip a little bit. Maybe we can go back, but on a similar topic, I'm wondering if BitFinex can I showed Phil a while ago this guy who's done a pretty good website that's like a kind of how to use BitFinex website, and it's basically a better frequently asked questions than what you have in your website.
Are
But
you
furthermore,
talking about BTC?
I can't remember the link. I mean, I could dig it up, but it was somebody who who basically took the time to really go through things. And I do feel that in general, the support documentation on BitFinex is pretty lacking, and more importantly to me, not only do I want to see a better handholding and explanation of the way things work, but I want actually some details about the way some of the things work. Like I mentioned to you, I think that there should be a little more disclosure about how your throttling works when there's a large order, whether that be sharing, whether it works in time intervals or order size interval chunks, and some kind of information about that, at least particularly to the person. If a person is going to be affected when they're making an order by throttling, maybe sharing a little bit of information at that time, warning them about slippage, whatever. But also, how the flash rate is determined, and that equation. And there was one other one. Speed bumps. Oh, and how the prioritization works in when you're having like a real big move in the price for margin calls and stops. What gets priority, and are stops getting a separate priority than margin calls, and is it all just timestamp based, etc.
Well, let me start off with I asked about the throttling that you said you saw earlier, because I mean, even though that I am at BitFinex,
I wasn't sure if I saw it. I just mentioned just an area where I'd be worried for that person if he were throttled.
All right, yeah. But since I haven't been here terribly long, my sample size isn't that large, so I haven't seen it personally. So I asked about that, and what I was told is that in very, very rare circumstances that throttling will be done, and it hasn't been done in months. And one of the only, I mean, they have to be placing an order that'll move the market in the vicinity of 10% or more before our algorithms would consider.
So that's a great example. Is just knowing that it has more to do with percentage movement than order size. Something like that.
Well, there's a
that kind of thing being documented.
And I mean, we can't really put it out there exactly what thresholds need to be met for it to take off, because we don't want people to game the system. But a few things that I can say is that even in January when the price dove down to I think 157, that was on futures. I'm not sure how far it went down on spot, but in that January dive, there was no throttling done. Even then when volatility was getting really extreme, and so we haven't throttled in many months. That this isn't something that really happens. And then even then, the people that have been throttled, every time it's gotten the user a better average price than they would have gotten if it was a straight market order.
I think people often think that the throttling engine, throttling algo has kicked in because as you say, the reporting of the matching tends to, the website experience degrade considerably, and the API experience degrades to the point of being non-existent. And it looks like, I mean, I'm not saying whether that's what's happening at matching engine level, but it looks like, BitFinex is grinding to a halt. And that happened, I think, a week before or a few days before the, the big dump to, I think it was 166 probably on Finex. But anyway, that big drop. And, it happens like that when there are big moves, that the experience from our side, what we see, it looks like either BitFinex is falling over or the tinfoil hats come out and say, oh, BitFinex is playing shenanigans.
Yeah, that's just lag in reporting. That isn't throttling. That isn't anything else going on there. That's just the delay from the time that the orders are being matched and the time it takes to report them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and then on to the real quick back to the FAQ. That's something that I'm actually working on going over and improving and kind of revamping right now. So I hope that somewhat soon I'll be able to come out and we'll have a more in-depth, more comprehensive FAQ.
Is that going to come with some live support as well as like a telephone number to reach you guys and such like that?
I don't know about a telephone number or anything like that, but I mean, as you know, Vixen, anybody can add me on WeChat, and that's pretty much 24/7 support if you guys need it.
If I can sneak in a little question here, actually, in comparison, I mean, I don't think we ever kind of expected the kind of support, but when we all moved over to OKCoin, and we saw the level of contact that we could have. There are all these different channels. You could speak to someone on the phone. You can talk to someone on QQ or whatever. Does BitFinex have any plans to improve their support contact and not just have email?
I mean, if you look at the majority of the contact that you guys had with OKCoin in terms of support, it was Nika and myself. And Nika has now joined BitFinex, and I'm on BitFinex. And so the majority of the contact that you had with OKCoin is no longer there.
Well, I'm not talking about this kind of contact. I'm talking about just straight customer contact. If I'm on the website, if I'm on OKCoin and I have a problem, I have a myriad of ways to get in touch and speak to a human being. I don't have the email and hopes.
I mean, and what I'm saying is that's something that we're working towards, and that's demonstrated by the fact that we did bring over Nika and I am here, and
sure. But my specific question is, what plans do you have? I mean, and if you don't have them, maybe when they come. But what plans do you have to improve contact? Actual real customer support. Like frontline support would be great, for example.
I'm not sure about a phone, but live chat is something that we're looking at adding. And I mean, as I think a lot of you guys know, you can always get in touch with me. Or
but I have to say
we will be adding hold on. We will be adding more contact information on the site and more ways to get in touch with us.
Yeah. Just saying the contact we have with you is a kind of I mean, it's we've been hanging out. It's more of a trader thing. I'm just saying, the standard. Someone clicks the support tab and they get a list of support options. I mean, you're going to put your WeChat on there.
You're talking about website proper.
I'm talking about website proper.
If you have WeChat, I'm sorry, not WeChat. Sorry. If you have on-site chat and you have email and you have these different options, what else are you going to be using? I mean, I understand maybe a phone. I'm not sure if we're looking to add that, but on-site chat, that's instant. That's instant responses right there.
I mean, I'll just give you an example. There are times.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, real quick.
Are you supposed to go in the other room to make a call?
This is intermittent.
Sorry about that.
It's alright. But Zane, what if I only speak Spanish? Do you have that problem solved yet?
We will be looking to add more languages, but we do currently have Chinese, English, and now Russian. I'm not sure if we have Spanish though.
All right. Well, anyways, Drac, I know you wanted to hit hard on security, so let's open up that bag.
Yeah. So BitFinex has become now pretty much the #1 exchange that we can see, and there are huge quantities of fiat being stored in the lending markets, for example, and obviously huge quantities of Bitcoin are being stored. So can you walk us through a little bit about the security protocols that you have? Not necessarily the specifics of it, but the kind of things you're doing to make sure that you don't end up getting bit stamped or Mount Goxed?
All right. Yeah. Well, two things. One is Bitstamp is BTC. Gox is also BTC. And then you're talking about fiat. So fiat's stored in the bank. So that's more on the bank side of things. And banks obviously have gone through they have extensive regulations that they have to meet. And their security is top notch. So our fiat is stored there. So that shouldn't really be an issue. But as towards where our BTC is stored, 99.5% of our coins are held in multi-sig wallets, and a lot of that's cold storage. But in this vein, we do have an announcement coming up that we're pretty excited. We're pretty excited about, and it'll be pretty big. It'll be one of the first of its kind in the industry, and I can't really release what exactly it is, but it'll be coming up in not too long, and I think it'll be the first of its kind. It'll really go a long way in kind of adding to the security of the exchange and kind of putting people's minds at ease.
Mm-hmm. So our minds will be put at ease at some point in the future.
I know the whole 2 weeks thing is a lot of fun, but just give it a little bit of time, and we'll have something that comes out, and you won't be worrying about it anymore.
Sure, I think I have an idea. So the lead-in sort of the way this connects to privacy, however, is that BitFinex has always been very privacy orientated. There's minimal verification, unless you have contact with sending fiat into and out of the exchange, and then it's normal KYC. But something that concerns me considerably about what Bitstamp did, they outsourced their multi-signature solution to BitGo. BitGo is a US company, and Bitstamp itself appears to not really care about customer privacy, as we saw recently. Who's clicking something? So Bitstamp, showed in the recent thing with that FBI, rogue FBI agent, that they were overstepping the boundaries, possibly, of their willingness to disclose information about their customers. And the problem with BitGo and the Bitstamp environment is that now a third-party American company is now, involved in the customer relationships with Bitstamp. So that's another place where customer privacy can be broken. And I love the whole multi-signature thing, but I think it was possibly a terrible idea to be outsourcing it. And there's no need to outsource it. The whole point of Bitcoin is this kind of technology can be done in-house. So I would be very concerned if this announcement that you guys are going to make would change the privacy aspect of BitFinex, because so far BitFinex has been really top-notch in protecting customer privacy.
I don't think that that's definitely one thing that we will continue to aim to protect, but I think that remaining compliant is a must. And you're talking about Bitstamp overstepping bounds with the FBI agent. They do have a duty to report any.
Yeah, but I think you're misunderstanding. We're not talking about not complying with regulations. For example, BitFinex complies with all the money laundering regulations that it needs to, and that is if customers are dealing in with real cash, then into and out of the exchange, then you verify and you have all the reporting requirements and so on, right? It's kind of, but if you're just dealing in Bitcoin, there are currently no regulations which say anything about that. So you can actually join the BitFinex exchange with just a username, and go about your Bitcoin trading, right? Now, where it gets ugly is if you involve a company like BitGo, who is now a US company who can be subpoenaed. There was a fund sent to this multi-sig address. Do you own that? What customer data do you have on that, etc., etc. You understand? It becomes a privacy leak by default. Now, that's not about not following regulations. What I'm saying is this is when you are following regulations but you're not being required to disclose stuff, that the third-party company now is a leak. You understand?
I mean, I do understand where you're going, but I'm not sure I agree with it, because the unverified users will continue to have their privacy, and privacy is something that BitFinex, as a Bitcoin company, very much holds in high regard. And it's something that we've continued to show that we aim to protect, and something that we do want to protect, and let our users have privacy.
Yeah, for example, though, you guys are not an American company, and therefore you're not required to disclose, data if you get a subpoena. It would have to be in BVI or whatever, right? Now, my point is, if you're now dealing with third parties with which you have to share data about your customers with, and those third parties are now the United States, then it becomes a problem. And
for the unverified users, there isn't that data. There is no data. So we won't be sharing any data.
But it's still a problem for the users who verify. Like people who might use BitFinex and verify, are consciously choosing potentially BitFinex over Coinbase. And instead of verifying with Coinbase, exchange, they're verifying with BitFinex because of the security. Because of the privacy.
I don't want to get too philosophical in this, because I feel like we're kind of going down that rabbit hole. There's certainly concerns. I think you've raised some great concerns, Drac, especially, many of the people in here being U.S. citizens and using BitFinex and that going forward. So if we just want to leave that lay for right now, and just, it's something to be cognizant of it. Anybody in the space should kind of have that, we're not all safe with privacy if we're using any third party that we, it's not our cold storage wallet, basically. So, but I did want to, because we're kind of running up to the edge of our time here, I wanted to specifically go into future developments, and then kind of wrap it up from there. Especially with the mobile app, we'll start with that, because a lot of people have, that was a big thing with OKCoin, was their mobile app. So can you address what are plans for the mobile app? And then we have stuff like, are you going to add multiple currencies? How would that work, if you would? And then we'll just kind of move on from there.
All right. So for the mobile app, that is something that we would like to do. I think a lot of the people, when I was at OKCoin, I got a lot of feedback about the app, and people did enjoy it. And so that is something that we would like to see done. But for the time being, I think trying to make a clean mobile site for, in the browser, in a mobile browser, is something that we can get done in the short term, and kind of make it a lot easier for users to trade while on the go, even if they don't have the app. And I understand that an app is the end goal, and it is something that we would like to see done, and it is something we'd like to do. But a good segue to that would be a clean mobile version that anybody could use through their browser on their mobile phone. And so yes, we do want an app, but yeah, the mobile version is something that we think we can do in the interim, and kind of hold it over until we look into the app further.
Gotcha. And then I did touch upon those, if you were going to add multiple currencies, and you can address that real quickly. But my name says it all. I'm very interested in options. We've talked to Phil about that. It's always kind of, yeah, that's something you guys are considering. Can you put a little bit more color behind that, and the thoughts coming out of BitFinex around derivatives in general?
Which one do you want me to address first, multi-currency or derivatives?
I feel like the multi-currency might be just a quick one, so just gloss over that and then move
All right.
specifically into
Well,
derivatives.
I mean, I think the thing that we need to see first for the multi-currency is the demand. So far, I don't think I've seen a very large demand for it. When you look at some of the exchanges that do have multi-currency, like ANX, Euro, and Kraken, you're not seeing a lot of demand there. You're not seeing a lot of trading action going. But as some of you might know, Alphapoint, one of the strengths that it does have is the ability to do multiple currencies. And so that is something that we will look into, but right now it's basically the demand needs to come first before we look into doing the multiple currency.
And then I know, Cratch, did you want to say something? I'm not really familiar with SEPA. I know that's a big European thing. Is that something you guys are talking about? SEPA support?
SEPA is something that we would like to look into because having the quicker deposit, the quicker withdrawals is obviously a massive benefit. But so it is something that obviously we would like to add to the exchange.
All right, let's drill down into derivatives, and then we'll close it at that.
All right. I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier with the daily crossing. So basically what we want to do is we want to become, we feel like with our position in the market and what we have, we want to have a daily closing price, a settlement price for Bitcoin that, can not only be used for our derivatives, but can be used across the industry. And so that's one thing that we need to get done first is it's a bridge we need to cross first. And then after that, we can kind of look into going into options and other derivatives. But this is something that we would like to look into and we are actively pursuing. But there are a few steps that we need to get through first before we can do that. And the first step of that is developing a daily crossing mechanism. And then that settlement price will be the basis of our derivatives market.
Gotcha. Actually, we do have a little time. Drac asked if...
Actually,
go ahead.
There's a couple things that I would just like to touch on
Sure.
that I've kind of gotten in because as we're talking, I'm getting a few messages from other people on the BitFinex team that would like to chime in or whatever. But earlier you guys asked if we had Spanish. We do. Josh speaks Spanish. We also have Dutch and I believe French. And then on to SEPA. We do want SEPA, but it is a little tough to find European banks that are open to it. And it's not good to go find a bank only to get shut down shortly thereafter. So we need to find a bank that we can build a meaningful relationship with and kind of have long-term prospects instead of just going for something in the short term and then leaning it and then getting shut down.
Is that...
What about Fedor Bank?
Fedor Bank, I'm not sure how much I could say about Fedor Bank because I know some things from my time at OKCoin when we were looking into that, but I'm not quite sure how much I can say. Right now I don't. I can just say I don't think Fedor is actually accepting other Bitcoin exchanges at this time. I'm not certain on that, however.
Okay, cool.
All right, and then Drac was asking about Tether. Is there any update on how that's doing on the platform?
I am actually not sure about Tether. I have not spent too much time looking into that.
Okay. All right. Well, we've run over an hour. I like to kind of keep these to around an hour so it's digestible. And you're willing to do these hangouts again on a regular basis, like we had been in the past, correct?
Of course. Yes. Always.
So I mean, that's the awesome part about it is if we just don't cover it, we can, cover it again or at a later date. And I'm sure there'll be many more things as far as questions coming out of this and going forward. as BitFinex moves with their integration process and their new product rollout. So I just want to thank everyone on the panel. You can find us over on the Whale Club TeamSpeak, ts.whaleclub.io. And thanks, Zane from BitFinex, coming over and talking with us. And
one other thing that I just wanted to add real quick that I found was different in this Hangout than Hangouts before is you guys didn't really give much input on what you wanted to see or any products or features or changes or anything like that you'd like to see. It was more questioning. So if you guys do have a feature list that you'd want or anything you'd like to see, please let me know, and I can look into having them integrated.
In all fairness, I think we have actually. We've said, there's stuff that's we like fixed, we like algo orders, we like and everything seems to be bottlenecked at Alphapoint integration. So I think that's the problem.
Well, and I feel like I can't. I guess. Sorry, Zane. I don't mean to step over you, but I've voiced a lot that options are a big thing, in my heart. So, but I also know that there's only so much I can say. Like, hey, I want options, and you say, well, we have plans of that. We're going about, and you can only say that to me so many times, and I'm like, okay.
Well, and again, it's Alphapoint, isn't it? Once Alphapoint comes on, then we can get the daily cross. Once Alphapoint comes on, then we can have the different order types. I mean, it's just bottleneck.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Zane, that's why we have actually given lots of feature requests, but until the Alphapoint thing really comes about, then I mean we're just going around in circles.
All right. Well, just one last thing on Alphapoint. We are currently looking at the Alphapoint orders, and they are matching much faster than what's happening live, and so it does look like things are going very well. And I would like you guys to keep in mind that this is a huge change. It is something that will have big effects, and if we aren't completely careful and 100% sure in confidence with this product before we launch, it could have a very large negative impact. And so we just want to be 100% sure before we go forward with it. And I can't really stress that enough.
All right. Well, thank you, Zane. I'm going to close it out then. So everyone have a good day.